Well, hi, hello there. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tabitha Gabrielle, and today I'm going to be doing a recent reads video with you. I'm outside right now, and it's middle of summertime, and there are so many background noises. So hopefully it's not too obvious, because I also just recently got a new microphone. So I tested the audio and it sounded okay. If there's any problems, I apologize in advance. These are all books that I read over the course of May to June because I didn't read any books in April. I don't know what was going on in April, but I didn't read a single solitary book in April. These are all books that I read in May and June, and then I think there's one in July that I'm going to talk about as well. So the very first book that I'm going to be talking about is Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. I got this book just because I was randomly walking through Books A Million one day and I saw the cover and it was the only one left, and I was like, wow, that is a gorgeous cover. And regardless of how I feel about the book itself, the cover still stands as gorgeous. It really sucked me in at first because the world is so atmospheric and immersive, and it's very like European folklore type vibes. There's deep dark forests and magical creatures that live in the forests and village people, and like, look at her dress. I love her outfit on the cover. Like, it's just very European folklore, if you know what I mean. Our main character is Liska. I think that's how you say her name. And she is this village girl who has kind of always been an outcast in her community because she has these weird magical powers. And her family has always like forced her to stifle them. And she lives in a like religious community, and they're very weary of her because her powers don't come from God. And so anyway, I didn't particularly love how they mixed real world religion into this, but I think that the author was trying to like make it like it happened in the real world, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I didn't particularly love that overlap because the church was painted in a not so great light. The church was kind of made out to be like the bad guys because they were like the ones that were against her from the beginning. And there is this one preacher that's like nice to her, but other than that, the whole thing is like painted in a very weird light, in my opinion. So I didn't particularly love that. So basically, the meat of this story is that Liska is an outcast in her village. And so there's these stories about this magical flower out in these
deep, dark, demon-infested woods
that can grant wishes. And so she, on a solstice night or something, she goes out in search of this flower through these magical woods filled with like all kinds of evil creatures and demons and things. And so she's searching for this flower so that she can make a wish to get her magical powers taken away so that she can be like a normal citizen in her community. So she's out there searching for this flower, and then she runs into like the keeper of the forest or whatever, and his name is the Lecrae. And again, I think I'm saying that right. But yeah, he's this dude with horns. The Lecrae finds her and saves her because she's about to get eaten by this river creature. And so he finds her and he takes her back to his manor, which is in the middle of these deep dark woods, and she gets lost and she doesn't know where she is. So she's like, oh no, I can't go back home. And so anyway, the Lecrae is like, yeah, I will grant your wish if you live in servitude to me for 1 year. So you have to stay here in my house and like cook and clean, basically, is what he's wanting her to do. So you have to cook and clean for me for an entire year. And then if you do that faithfully to me, I will grant you a wish, is what he says. The Lecrae ends up like showing Liska the way magic can actually help people instead of the way she's always been taught that it like hurts people. It's about her finding her identity as like one of these keepers of the forest or whatever. If I was rating this book solely for the vibes and like the springness of it, like spring vibes galore, I would rate this a good solid 4.5 stars. But if I'm rating it for the story itself, I'm giving it 2 stars because while I liked the story and I could appreciate a lot of the elements in it, it was just weird. I don't have another way to describe it either. It was just weird because you have this village girl and she ends up falling in love with this demon. What? And I feel like I would have gotten behind the Lesky a lot better if they would have used any other terminology for him other than demon.
Stop it. Get some help.
But I'm like, I guess the European folklore thing, I don't know, but I'm like, couldn't you call him a vampire or like literally anything else?
But no, they had to go and call him a demon.
And the fact that this village girl ends up falling in love with this demon, I'm like, I don't like any kind of stories like that. Atmospheric, yes, amazing. It was beautiful, very lyrical writing. It's fantastic in that element. But the story itself, the second book that I read is The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. And I read this as an audiobook. I don't have like the physical version of it. I read The Sword Catcher back at like the end of last year, and it was good, but it does have adult themes and spice and stuff like that in it, so be aware of that before you go into it. I talk about the first book in this series, The Sword Catcher, in this video, so if you're interested in that, you can go and look at that. But this is the second book, which is The Ragpicker King. And so it's basically picking up where the last book left off. The characters still stayed as memorable and lovable as ever, making some of the most questionable decisions imaginable. But, you know, that's what makes them complex characters. And so I appreciate them for what they are and who they are, even though I don't agree with some of the decisions that they make in this book.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
I understand.
It makes sense, you know what I mean? I feel so bad because I feel like I can't really say much about it. Go watch the first video where I talk about the first book so you can get more context on like what this world is like, because I literally feel like I can't talk about this one. There's so much political drama, and I loved it. I love political drama where it's just enough to make me feel a little bit dumb and a little bit confused. But then, like, as I really plug in, it kind of comes together as the story progresses, and it makes sense. And that's what this felt like. I rated it 4 stars, but again, be aware of content before you go into it and read it yourself. The third book that I read is Of Fire and Ash by Gillian Bronte Adams. I started buddy reading this with Celestria back in, like, March. We've been talking about trying to buddy read this since January, and we started buddy reading it in, like, March. And it took forever for me to finish this, mainly because like for the first half of the book, I was just trying to figure out who was who and what was going on. Things that were happening in this POV, I'm like, how does this tie at all into what's going on in the other 2 POVs? Once I started putting together the political dynamics of the world, and I was able to like connect, oh, so that's gonna affect this area in this way. Once I started figuring that out, it was much easier to get into it and finish reading it. But I'm not gonna lie, the first like half of this book took me like 2 months to read because I was like,
I have no idea what's going on.
Like 24/7 the whole time I was reading it, I was like, what does this have to do with anything?
You're not getting it. It's not clocking to you.
All you romance lovers out there, there's not a lot of romance to work off of in this. She gives little crumbs. Okay, little crumbs. And if you know the 2 characters I'm thinking of, you know the 2 characters I'm thinking of, okay? Once you get into it, and once you, like, understand the world and understand the character motivations, it is really good, okay? So basically in this world, there are magical horses, and they're called soulborn, so S-O-L-born, and there are fire-breathing horses. There are horses that like can run on waves in the oceans and in rivers and things like that. There are horses that have wings and can fly in the sky, and they all have like their own unique names and stuff. I thought that element was really cool. I definitely used to be a horse girl in my younger days, and I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard of the game Star Stable, but your girl was Star Stable's #1 fan, okay? Like, I loved Star Stable for years of my life. And this book just touched the part of my heart that is still secretly a horse girl. I can definitely tell that the author loves horses, and I saw in an Instagram post that she made that the main horse that Sarah Dwin rides, this horse Mindar, was inspired by her real life horse, which is so sweet and so beautiful. So in this book, you're following Sarah Dwin, you're following a second character named Rafi, and then you're following a third character named Jakeem. In this book, only two of them meet each other. And so you're still left hanging. You're like, what about the third one? Aren't they ever going to meet everybody else? Yes, in the second book they do. So Sarah Dwin is basically a princess, but she was cast out of her kingdom by her father after an incident where one of her siblings dies. She ends up joining this kingdom's version of the army, I guess, and so she learns a lot through that experience. And then later on, her father is assassinated and there's a usurper on the throne, and so she kind of like has to lead the kingdom and kind of come back up from the ashes and be like, hey, I'm here and I'm ready to take my kingdom back. And then the people that were loyal to her father, there's like some political back and forth there because some of them are loyal to her and some of them are not. And then in the other two POVs, we have like a prisoner of war from like the army that's invading her country. And then we also have, I can't reveal his character because I don't want to spoil anything about Rafi, but Rafi is not just some random village boy. I'll say that much. This whole book, he's like not even on the same continent that she is. It's interesting to see the way that it all ties together. So anyway, I feel like that was a lot of rambling and none of it made much sense. But suffice it to say, I rated this 4 stars. I feel like it could be really enjoyable for you just because of the horses. The fourth book that I'm going to be talking about today is The Forest King's Daughter by Elly Blake. This is, again, a book that I saw at the bookstore, and I was like, wow, that's a beautiful cover. And I picked it up, and the reviews said that it was comparable to The Cruel Prince, which I loved The Cruel Prince, if you don't know. I ate that series up last year. Watch those videos before you read it, just so you kind of know what you're getting into, but I loved the Cruel Prince series. And so when I saw that it was comparable to that, I was like,
Sign me up.
I think I just went into it with too high of expectations because I did not find it comparable to the Cruel Prince, if I'm being 100% honest. This is a story about 2 different kingdoms. There's the Dracu people and there's the Sylvan people, and they don't get along. They've never gotten along. Our main character, Cassia, is a member of the Sylvan people, and then our main character, Zuru, is a member of the Dracu people. These 2 characters end up meeting as kids, and they kind of like forge this friendship that's kind of like hinting that they're going to end up falling in love later in life. Zuru, trying to like, forge this friendship with this new person that he met, gives her a ring, not knowing the importance of said ring. I still didn't fully understand the significance of the ring, but it's very important. So basically, Zuru gifts this ring to Cassia, and then Cassia puts this ring on and ends up not being able to remove it or take it off because the ring has chosen her to become the Death Ringer, which means that she's like capable of destroying the Dracu people. So anyway, Zuru's mom and dad are very upset that he gave this ring to their enemy, and they didn't even know that this friendship was being forged, so they're very upset. The rest of the book is basically Zuru trying to get the ring back. There's like parts of this book where I was listening to it and I was like, what am I listening to right now? Like, what is even happening? They travel to this kingdom in the sky, and then they're forced to become allies through this experience that they have in the Sky Kingdom. Cassia and Zuru end up, falling in love and making choices based off of that versus their loyalty to their people groups. And everything turns out okay at the end. They all live happily ever after. I rated it 3 stars. I mean, I thought it was cool and good. Like, it's got an autumnal atmospheric vibe to it. I would recommend it. It's just kind of weird in some areas, but I believe this is a debut novel, and for a debut novel, it's pretty good. So the 5th book that I'm going to be talking about today is The God of the Garden by Andrew Peterson. I listened to this as an audiobook, and I thought that it was stunning. I recently discovered Andrew Peterson through the Wingfeather Saga series, the little animated series that was released based off of his books. And me and my sister loved the series, like the one singular season that's currently out of the Wingfeather Saga. Stunning. Like, it's so cute. After I watched the series, I proceeded to buy all the books. I haven't read any of the books yet, but for the Wingfeather Saga, I like own all the books now. But this book is more of like a thought collection. It's not a work of fiction. He ties some of his own personal life story into it as well. This man loves trees. And this writing is so lyrical, and you can tell that his love for trees and his love for nature in general, it comes over into his writing so well, and the way that he tells his story from his past and weaves it into the theme of trees is so beautiful. I loved it. As I was reading it, I thought multiple times, I think this man is a modern C.S. Lewis. Like, I think he's a modern version of C.S. Lewis. I know that's high praise, and it makes me nervous to say that because I've only read this one book of his. Let me know if you've ever read Andrew Peterson's work, if you can see similarities, or if you think it's comparable work to C.S. Lewis, because maybe it's a hot take, I don't know, but I thought it was great. And I didn't rate this book because he tied so much of his real story into it. It's not my place to rate someone's personal story. I'm not rating it, but I am highly recommending it. It's really good. The last book that I'm going to talk about in this video is a book that I just finished recently here in July, and that book is I Am Restored by Lecrae. If you somehow don't know who Lecrae is, he is a very prevalent Christian rapper. I've listened to him for years, probably since I was like 11 or 12, right around 2020, which is a crazy time in general for everyone anyway. But he kind of was catching a lot of flack from people because they felt like he was derailing as a Christian and wasn't someone worth following anymore. In hindsight, and hearing some of the things that he said more recently, like on his podcast and things, and now having read this book, I have a lot more understanding of like all of the things that he was going through at the time, and it makes a lot more sense. And I think that there should be some grace from people in that we all go through seasons of life that are really tough and really odd and really weird. I have found personally in my own life experience that seasons of growth and growing are often painful, but very necessary and worth it in the end. It's just hard when you're in the middle of that season to, acknowledge that and feel that. So it was really interesting in this book hearing his different takes and how he was feeling at the time and how he ultimately ended up overcoming what was going on in his life at the time. But I really appreciated hearing his voice in this book. I listened to the audiobook version of this, which again I like doing when the author's talking about their own life, because it's like I'm actually hearing them talk about their life. And I felt very empathetic with some of the things that Lecrae talked about in this book, just because of some of my own personal life experiences. And I thought that it was great. I thought that the way that he tied it all up in the end was great. It makes sense. I liked this book. I'm not rating it because, again, personal life stories, I'm not rating them. But I would recommend it. I thought it was really good. Okay, so hopefully this is better, just for the little outro. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, or like what you're currently reading or whatever. Let's talk about it, because I haven't talked about books in forever. We're not going to talk about that though. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever other time of day it is for you. I'll see you next time. Bye.